Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and by DieHard. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 113. I'm John Davis, of course, and joining me around our table in Studio C at MotorWeek World Headquarters is our writer, Brian Robinson.
I am Brian Robinson, of course,
and
as
well, are you done yet?
Yes.
Assistant producer Greg Carlos.
That is me, short and sweet.
Over the Edge reporter Zach Maskell.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You know what's missing is
our podcast producer.
Yeah, no, well, our podcast producer's not here. Patrick Lucas, but also it usually says writer and two-wheeling host Brian Robinson. So they left that off today. So I
told him to
make sure we get that right.
Yeah, that's right. He does a lot more here than just type at a computer. We have our lightning round and a viewer question. But, of course, what we always do at the beginning of our podcast is talk about some of the latest cars that we've tested at MotorWeek. Now, these two cars were both cars we did late in January when we do our week at Roebling Road Raceway outside of Savannah to get shows in the can before the worst of the winter weather, which I'm sure we're all glad we did this year because our mid-Atlantic weather has not been conducive to testing. But the 2015 Cadillac ATS Coupe 2.0. And we're going to also talk about the Nissan GT-R. All right, let's start with the Caddy ATS Coupe 2.0. This, of course, is the coupe version of the four-door with the 2-liter turbo engine that we had tested before. Did the four-door at Roebling and now the two-door. Any differences? I mean, we liked both cars.
No difference between that and the sedan. The biggest takeaway for me was still has the power to surprise. I mean, just the idea of taking a 2-liter ATS coupe out on a track doesn't really, make you too excited. But when you get out there after a couple laps, I mean, it's just a fun car. Plenty of power. It handles really good. Brakes are great.
Pretty decent transmission.
Yeah, shifter's great.
Yeah, I like that shifter actually. On the street, I felt like it was a little too mechanical for the street, but that was also after driving our GTI, which has a silky smooth shifter. But on the track, it's great. It works really well. Like Robinson said, it's something it kind of got lost in the mix with everything else we had there.
We had so many interesting cars.
But if you just had that and you're out to blast around on the track, I mean, you can have a lot of fun because you pretty much use everything this car has. I mean, if you're like not up to driving a supercar, you can really push this thing hard and have a great time.
Yeah, like Brian said, it doesn't really feel as fast as the competitors, but it does have pretty wonderful handling. And this year they made the suspension stiffer, and sport mode is, I guess you could call it harsh if you push it harder. Not the best of steering, but you still know where the car is going to go. So definitely a fun car.
I love the ATS, and of course we have taken two manuals to our track in Savannah, and I know very few of them actually get sold. But when you're actually talking about being a competitor against a 3 Series or something for enthusiasts, that's where we would like to talk about, even if they don't buy them. But I'm very surprised that after the first year, when the ATS sold well, that it's not selling very well. And I guess it's price. They pushed the price up a little too fast.
Price, and it's a relatively small market to begin with.
Yeah.
But as far as negatives on the track, it's super quiet.
Yeah.
Which that you combine with this really soft rev limiter, and you really got to learn where your shift points are, because you'll be coming off a corner and just, man, where'd the power go? And you look down and you're
in the
you're
limiter.
tacking out third, and you're in the limiter, and you don't even know.
But
other than that.
I didn't think we'd be at this point where we basically are talking about Cadillacs on a racetrack and we're nitpicking. Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Well, wait till the ATS-V comes out. That'll be a lot more fun.
It should be. Okay, moving on now to the beast, the Nissan GT-R. This is the the update of probably one of the last real brutish sports cars out there. What did we think? Should this monster be retired, or did they give it some new life, or what?
Yeah, it's kind of nearing that point where you're almost sick of seeing or even hearing about the GT-R. But it certainly belongs on a track. It's kind of hard to live with on a daily basis, just driving it around Savannah when we weren't on the track. It got old real fast. And there's nothing on the interior that really makes you want to stay in the car for
it's pretty
extended
business-like.
periods of time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, but it's perfect for a track.
Yep.
I mean, it's almost boring because it's so good. All-wheel drive and that twin-turbo 6, it's just tons of power. You can get on it so early. So, yeah, I mean, it's bred for the track, absolutely.
I've driven a few GT-Rs over the years, including over right-hand drive Skylines over in Japan. But this is the first time I've had one on a track here where I could just cut loose, for a couple of days and enjoy it. And it's a pretty impressive piece. Probably the steering is a little vague. I was surprised by that. Sometimes, it's not super crisp like you're expecting, but the performance.
Do you think
is
that's
just there
mostly
for
the
sure.
all-wheel drive aspect of it? Because that always seems to take away from steering feel.
Could be. I don't know. Not sure. I also did acceleration runs, and it is just brutal acceleration. I mean, 3-second 0 to 60s aren't really that big a deal anymore.
No.
But just the way it delivers it. That trans and the launch control is just insane. It feels faster than any car I've ever driven.
You characterized it as like we haven't been catapulted off a carrier deck, but it's got to be close.
Yeah, I mean, I've been faster to 60, but I've never felt that
Felt
fast
the
before.
speed, the acceleration.
Some people will tell you that the older Skylines are the king of the track. They brake excellent. They handle perfect. With this car, it's different. It's more of a straight line vehicle to me for that intense, acceleration that you guys were just talking about. This year, they got bigger turbos. The car can breathe easier. Definitely upgraded, which is good. But my biggest gripe is the price continuously climbs every year.
It used to be a bargain supercar. I guess it's still a bargain supercar. Yeah. I think the first one we ever tested was like 79 or something like that.
It was well under 100.
Yeah. The thing that brings back memories for me when I got in the GT-R is that it feels like an old Detroit high-performance car in a lot of ways. Not that it's rattling, but you feel the pavement. It is very stiff. And there's lots of mechanical noise. I mean, you feel like you're almost in the engine bay because of the clunks and the clicks and stuff that we used to equate to old Detroit iron, and not always very positively. But in this car, it was kind of nostalgic, but in a very good way, because the rest of the car is so capable.
Yeah, I think they've taken some of that out recently. This one seemed quieter,
a little more refined,
well-mannered.
Yeah. But it was still fun, and having it and the Lamborghini Huracan on the track at the same time, it was kind of fun trip. Okay, Zach, speaking of fun trips, you're kind of back from the moon, or the journey to the center of the earth, or whatever you want to call Iceland these days. You were there with Land Rover with the new Discovery Sport. I know the trip was cool. What about the vehicle?
That was an incredible experience. I do have to tell you something funny real quick about Iceland, that people actually were protesting against a highway being built because there were elves supposedly living.
Elves.
L with a V. Elf, not elks. Oh my God.
Elves living in route of the highway. So I don't know if it ever got built or not, but that is a thing that happened.
No kidding.
So yes.
Well, I would, if they're going to be anywhere, I suppose that's where they'd be.
We can't just be ruining the homes of elves. I mean, I'm on their side.
So the 2015 Discovery Sport. It's a 2.0-liter four-cylinder, which is Ford built and assembled, so that's pretty cool. 9-speed auto. Apparently the first gear is more for off-road use, so it's a much lower ratio, which can be slightly annoying at times. But other than that, it's just a really, really comfortable vehicle, both on and off-road, fully capable, as you would expect with a Land Rover. And this one's 9 inches longer, almost, than the Evoque, and in my opinion, handles better than the Evoque. And it's got 7 seats, stadium-style seating inside. The back's really just for kids, but you can still throw more stuff in there. So definitely a nice people hauler. And
this is their mainstream vehicle. I mean, what is this replacing? The LR4?
LR2.
LR2, rather.
Freelander.
Yeah, the Freelander. And although it's bigger, this is bigger than the LR2.
Right.
Yeah, and because I don't believe the LR2 ever had a third row seat of any type.
I don't think it did.
No.
Yeah. It's overall combination of comfort and versatility? Did you take it to some pretty demanding places?
Oh, yeah, we did. We crossed some streams that, honestly, I've off-roaded a few times, but you never know what you're getting into. And it just went straight across, that stream, man. And on all the ice and all the rutted-out trails and everything, there was not one moment where anybody, even in our group, got close to getting stuck.
Oh, that's impressive.
And, yeah, it's very, very impressive vehicle, for sure.
In the past, Land Rover has done, and Range Rover, of course, have done, I think, a very commendable job of correcting the perception of less than great quality. Did you see anything in this new vehicle that tells you they've made more strides? Did it give you any qualms about being maybe less than the most reliable or anything like that?
Not that I found. Granted, we didn't get to spend a lot of time with it. One of my only complaints would probably be the touch screen that was in there. I think it's a newer system that they have now. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I'm sure just as with any of those other screens, it could grow on me.
Yeah, they've made some amazing strides. We recently had in a Range Rover here, and the only qualm I really had with that was that I just thought the voice recognition system wasn't probably as good as some others. But Iceland, if you're going to go anywhere to test an off-road vehicle, I think that's certainly one of the best places on the planet.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on now to our lightning round, where we've got a couple of minutes to debate trending automotive topics. And when time was up, we're going to hear the bell that Greg has taken from Patrick Lucas. There it is. Here we go. There's been some recent controversy, which will probably continue, with Dodge dealers and Challenger and Charger Hellcats. Basically, some dealers have been accepting customer orders for Charger and Challenger Hellcats with no guarantee they'll ever be filled, or charging very high markups for the selected few they do get. FCA US, which is what we used to call the Chrysler Group, has responded negatively to the news. Who's crazy there? The Italian Americans in Michigan for not allocating more cars, or what? Are dealers being undealer-like? Anybody got a comment?
No, they're being dealer-like, which is sleazy money grabbers and making life miserable for people. That's what they do. But
bad experience, or what?
Yeah,
well, this is normal.
Yeah, but
not good.
No,
but
it's not
normal.
normal to take deposit on cars that you can't deliver.
In my life, I've seen it happen more than a few times.
I'm sure it was like a slippery slope for him too. Well, giving the dealer some credit, I'm sure it started with they had an idea that they might get some cars allocated to them. So they probably took the first few of the deposits and were like, you know what, we might be able to actually deliver these cars. But then they probably realized, hey, we're making money. Let's just keep taking them. I don't care if we get the cars or not. Yeah. So, I'm with Robinson. I would definitely blame the dealers ahead of FCA.
Yeah, you can't blame Chrysler for wanting to keep it a limited production special vehicle. They've always done that with Viper. They could make a ton more Vipers than what they do, but they keep it limited so the vehicle is something special.
I've got a problem that even goes beyond that. To me, it's like I really not only do I think that it's wrong for the dealers to be taking deposits for cars they can't get, and I can tell you back in the late 70s, Chevy dealers routinely did that on Corvettes. I also have this problem with these skies or no limit markups. It's like, of course, I also have problems with people that pay them because it's going to be a long time if you ever get that money back. But, when a manufacturer sets an MSRP, I really do think the dealers ought to be sticking at least to the spirit of it. But sometimes you go in on something like this. I'm sure some of these cars have been marked up $10,000 or more.
Oh, yeah, and then people put them on eBay before they've even taken delivery of them, marking them up another $20,000, $30,000.
Yeah. It just, I think in a way that it spoils something like this for people that might want to enjoy it. It automatically puts it out of their reach. And maybe that's good old American way, but I'm with you guys.
That was 2 minutes.
You didn't even pipe in.
I have nothing to say about that.
The bell's already rung. You can't unring the bell. I take my new duties very seriously.
That sounds very poignant. All right, let's move on now to our viewer question. Chet hates touchscreens and wants to know, what is MotorWeek's take on touchscreens? Boy, I think we've got a lot of different opinions. Who wants to take a crack at that first?
Well, the hater really does. We've had, all kinds of touchscreens here. I assume he's talking about in cars specifically. We've seen good ones and we've seen bad ones. I mean, systems like the Chrysler system, where it's a huge screen, all the buttons are big,
and it's close to you.
They're great. You get a system like the last Subaru system, where the buttons are tiny. You can't hit them without hitting another button, or ones that don't respond. Then they're terrible. It's like any other technology. There's good ones and bad ones.
Guys.
Yeah, I agree. Just when the buttons are too small and then you add about how far away the dash is, it just becomes such a pain. One of our long terms was like that. I can't think of what it is right now.
What was it like?
It's just the buttons were all too small, and
it was probably a Subaru,
probably
Impreza,
or the small
Forester.
screen on one of the last Volkswagens.
I think for me to like a touchscreen, it has to work really well, and
it needs to be sensitive to the touch.
It does. And my other problem is I don't sit very close to the steering wheel, so if I want to use any
Greg's a tall
touchscreen,
guy.
no matter how much or how good the touchscreen is, I still have to reach forward. And it kind of interrupts my driving, and I try not to do it. But overall, I would rather if I have the option, I would take buttons and knobs over actually touching the screen. And just from a actual visual standpoint, when you're touching the screen and everything, it gets all smudgy and it just doesn't look very good.
Get that finger grease all over it, and then the sun comes out. And
I'm sure somebody out there is saying, "You idiots! Why don't you use voice recognition?" Because most of the cars that have sophisticated navigation
and I hate
systems,
using it.
We're just not there yet.
I don't even like talking to people, much less talking to myself to order my car.
Brian's actually faced the other way in the studio. He doesn't look at any of us.
The biggest problem there is it takes so many prompts. I mean, it's not like you can really say, and your point exactly, like, go to the navigation screen or find me this. It's like you got to say navigation, then you got to say destination. I mean, by the time you've made 4 or 5 different inputs and waited for the system to respond, you're there.
That's why I like the iDrive systems, and I said it a year or two ago.
And that's the next place thing I wanted to get to.
People thought I was weird because I liked it, like Audis or BMWs, and I think it's great when your hand's already down there by the shifter anyway, or at least mine is. So for me, I mean, it makes perfect sense to have a controller right there.
I think we have made a collective change in our opinion, a collective change in our opinion at MotorWeek in the last year and a half or so. I think when touchscreens first started getting into cars, we thought it was pretty cool technology. And I know I and some others said, they didn't like the iDrive controllers because they were cumbersome, the central controllers. Now they've improved to the point, or else we've gotten used to them, one of the two, and we've got a BMW i3 here that's got a central controller and 2 screens, and frankly, I don't miss the touch at all. I find it much more convenient. So I don't know. I think the hands on the knob, or at least the voice, if they'd ever figure it out, that's better. Okay?
I think we're all in agreement.
Okay, we're all agreeing.
Sure.
So there you go, Chet. Maybe I hope that tempers your anger just a little bit about touchscreens, but at least you know that we're pretty much in your camp.
Yeah, I want more questions from this guy.
Yeah.
I feel like I like talking about things
passionate.
So I don't think they're going away, though. I mean,
No, I don't think so.
You might have to get on board, Chet. Sorry.
I'm afraid if you're going to be looking for a car that doesn't have one, I'm not sure that the non-touch screen is a growing trend, at least not yet. Let's just hope they get the voice recognition down to something that we all can use. And that, I think, speaking of voice, brings to an end our MotorWeek podcast, number 113. I'd like to thank everyone sitting around the table here, our writer and producer and two-wheel and reporter and all these other things he does.
A true Renaissance.
Brian Robinson.
Unbelievable.
But Greg, you're not going to go far. Our assistant producer and the guy who basically does an awful lot to make our road tests look as great as they do. Greg Carlos, and our over-the-edge reporter, who is probably one of the most pure automotive enthusiasts that we've ever had on our staff, Zach Mescal.
I like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of compliments.
I'm going to quote that right there, John. Thank you.
That's really true.
Definitely one for the resume.
I want to thank our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, for always making us sound a lot more intelligent than we actually are. Our podcast creator, Bob Mixter, for starting all of this a long time ago. and our podcast producer, who's conveniently somewhere else on the planet today, Patrick Lucas. For all of us at MotorWeek, thank you very much for listening, and be sure to catch MotorWeek on your public television stations and also on the Velocity cable channel. I'm John Davis. Thanks for watching and listening to MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and by Die Hard. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series, each week on your local PBS station.